What are you giving the Pats for their offseason? What grade are you giving? Teddy, I'm gonna start with you.
I'm gonna give him a C plus. Um, and that's probably being generous. Um, just because they didn't really do anything, they just re-signed guys. I mean, they brought on like Antonio Gibson, which is on the non-injury list, so I don't know how long he's gonna be out. It was a good thing they drafted Drake May. That was huge. You guys know how I feel about him, so that's another reason why it's a C plus. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna go with a C plus.
All right, Tony. I see you made some faces. What's your offseason grade?
I actually think it's a lot higher than what Teddy's talking about. I give them probably about an A minus, run that thing there. And the only reason why I say that is because they brought back pieces that they need to bring back, right? Although you may say they just re-signed people, they re-signed some pretty important people. uh, Michael out there at tackle, signed Duggar back. Some of those guys they signed back are important pieces, especially for having a young quarterback. You really need to shore up the offensive line. You need to make sure that the defense is there to play well, which I think is going to be um, a fairly good defense. The Barmore injury kind of hampers that a little bit, but I still think that overall they'll be a pretty good team. I mean, you got to if you look at the entire off season, Teddy, you have to look at not only that but the draft picks also. The draft picks were pretty decent. We got some people who I didn't expect for us to get. At that time. Coming in there and getting Polk out of Washington. Getting Baker out of UCF. Those are two big picks. I think the surprise sleeper for them is actually going to be Joe Milton. He's actually having a pretty good camp. Most people don't really that looking at that, but he's actually having a really good camp. Could
Yep.
he? Could they keep three quarterbacks this year instead of keeping two? But I think that well, I'll say that for both predictions, but I think that this is going to be uh, the off season is going to make us have a better season than most people are predicting to have, barring injuries. But they are a few injuries away from this being a disaster season.
That is true. Glad that you guys kind of brought up the off season, and some of the moves. I kind of wanted to just go over some of the names that you guys had signed this off season. He already mentioned Antonio Gibson. You signed Austin Hooper, who helps out at tight end as far as the depth piece.
Hmm.
Um, you signed Jalen Rager to a minimum 1 year contract, so that's at least some depth at wide receiver. We know the story about Jalen Rager being taken before a certain wide receiver, so you
Mm-hmm.
got that. You bring Hunter Henry back. Kendrick Bourne is coming back. Gave him a 3 year deal, and I love Kendrick Bourne. I think he's a really good piece for you guys. He has been for the last few seasons. Of course, he got injured last year, so he's coming back healthy. KJ Osborne give him a year deal. He used to be with the Vikings, so that
Yeah.
that I feel like that was a pretty good piece. Josh Uche, another guy, a DN, not too bad. And for me, I think the biggest piece to me, just because of what you have of what you drafted, is bringing back Jacoby Brissett. You got a guy who's used to New England, and you can have him come in and step in for a little bit to get Drake May ready if he's not the starter, and you pretty much can just allow him to be allow him to be the guy to help to study to teach because Jacoby Brissett is a really good vet in this league right now. He's a capable starter, being able to get you some wins here and there. I mean, he's not gonna. You don't look at him as your franchise quarterback, but he's not. He's not. That's not what he signed there for. You drafted your franchise quarterback. You drafted Drake May out of North Carolina, um, and I feel like those moves were really good. And then the biggest moves of them all, when it comes to the entirety of the team, was giving the head coach position to Gerard Mayo. A guy who's been in New England for a very long time. He was drafted there. You can say he's a Belichick guy, but he's coming in to run the system the way he wants to this time. Of course, he's Bill Belichick on. So I think this offseason is going to be pretty interesting, and I really like that move because it reminds me of the other move with the guy that went down in Texas. The guy that used to be our defensive coordinator, and he went and got CJ Stroud and that team had got bolstered. So
You got two of them, right? I mean, you got two defensive coordinators that had that. You got the one in New York, and you got the other one over the other side too. So I mean, you have both of them. Now I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think the biggest signing for New England wasn't even a player. All right, it wasn't a player. It was actually Alex. Alex was probably the best signing that they had for them. The way he ran an offense in Cleveland kind of shows you, kind of gives you almost a blueprint of what he's going to try to do with Drake. You know what I'm saying? And I do think that looking at the receiving core, that receiving core is probably built more for Drake May versus being built for Jacoby Brissett. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think of what there's a lot of speed on that. There's a lot of speed on that offense with the receivers. So you got to get somebody that can get the ball down the field to them, and also someone that's athletic enough to get out. Not saying that Jacoby's not athletic, but he doesn't really shown that he's tried to, especially after that first rookie season with New England when he went, I think it was like 3-1, I believe it was. He's never really shown athleticism as a quarterback. He can move around a little bit, but he's very much a Brady style quarterback. He's going to try to be in the pocket. He's going to try to deliver the ball on time. But if that offensive line doesn't hold up for him, he's not going to be effective. You saw that in Indianapolis when he was there. So you'll see, you'll at the offseason, a lot of the picks, they really wanted to load up a receiver. So that lets me know that they're going to probably going to run a lot of single back sets with what they have there, right? Ramondre can handle that. So we'll see how that works out. I'm pretty sure that you'll see some five wide sets, because he tried to do that in Cleveland, but he didn't really have the receiving core to do that. But look at the receivers we have; he'll be able to do that. So I mean, I'm pessimistic about the season because first year quarterback, but I think that I do think that this is the beginning of a rebuild. Although we've been rebuilding for a while. No one wanted to admit it. I didn't either. But it's a rebuilding thing for them. But we'll see what happens. First year head coach. We'll see what decisions he makes.
Yeah, I think one thing that we haven't mentioned is Matthew Judon. They need to figure that out because today he didn't practice. Jerron Mayo went up to him. They had a little conversation, and then Judon walked out of practice. So
yeah, I don't. So here's my thing. I think they'll figure that out. They're not going to trade him. Like his value right now. I don't know if they're going to trade him because they're going to want a lot back for him. You know what I'm saying? Even with the injury, he's still pretty decent.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if teams are going to compensate New England for what they're going to probably ask for. However, we do have enough money to restructure his contract to give him what he needs. So I don't think, and I think that it was smart for them to do some of the things they did, some of the moves they did. Most people were like, oh, they had all this money, they didn't spend it. Well, just like the Patriots have always done when they were winning, they always hold money in the chest, right, for situations like this. Yep. So I don't think the Matthew situation, and even if they trade him, I mean, they're going to get something back for him. You know what I'm saying? Although we're the reverse Cleveland Browns right now. Apparently, we're the farm team right now. We'll see what happens though.
Yeah, this is what the Patriots are doing. Putting that money in the pocket. $43 million in cap space. They're being
but they spent money wisely, right?
Yeah,
you don't want to go out there and do some of the things you want to do. right? Now there's an angry receiver down there, and anyway, but they don't need receivers, right? They don't need receivers. They'll pay him, and I think that they are.
Dave.
Y'all got the bread, pay him. I think
It's the fact that he did it 5 times. He said it 5 times.
What's that?
He said, "Look, I'm gonna pop him up."
He
every
said it
single
like
time.
5 times. I think Joe wants
These
us
are all
wow.
different ones.
I
Oh,
think
wow.
he wants
These
us
are all
to pay him.
different ones.
That's funny. But yeah, they got money, but I think the one thing that they don't want to do is do what Belichick did a few years ago, where he spent all this money on players and it didn't pan out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I think that's when he spent money on the tight ends more. He spent
Jonnu
money on
Smith.
somewhere else.
Yep.
yeah. So I think they want to be wise in doing it. They really haven't got. So the biggest problem with New England right now is the fact they haven't got the front office together yet.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem. It has nothing to do with the players on the field right now. It has to do with the front office. And once they fix that and get a real general manager there, they, and I think that's why most people didn't want to go there, because they haven't fixed it. Nobody wants to go into that situation where it's not fixed. You know what I'm saying? Or at least you can see where it's going.
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised.
Gotta have vision.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so you kind of brought up who I was going to talk about next. It's your new quarterback, the guy that you drafted, Drake May, quarterback there in North Carolina. There was a lot of talk about